I cleaned the entire house before my in-laws arrived. My mother-in-law walked in, looked around, and said, "This place smells like laziness." She opened the fridge, tossed out my groceries, and replaced them with her own. My husband said, "Don't start anything." So I did something quiet, but permanent. I don't usually talk about this. I've told myself for years that I was just keeping the peace, being mature, taking the high road. But that day broke something in me I didn't know was still breakable. We live in Naperville, Illinois. Nice neighborhood, brick homes, good schools. My husband Darren has a solid job in finance, and I work part-time as a virtual assistant so I can be home with our kids. I do everything: laundry, cleaning, groceries, bill paying, homework help, bedtime routines. Darren mows the lawn once a week and occasionally picks up a pizza. That's how it's been since our oldest was born. I never complained because I thought that's just what moms did. I figured maybe one day he'd see it, appreciate it. He never really did. But I was not prepared for Janice, my mother-in-law, to come back into our house and treat me like hired help. Her visits had always been bad. She'd say things like, "Oh, you gained some weight, huh?" Or, "These curtains don't match the couch," or, "You still doing that little job from home?" Always cutting. Always with that fake smile. Darren would laugh it off. "She's just old school," he'd say. This time, though, I tried to make it perfect. I spent 3 straight days cleaning. Every baseboard, every ceiling fan. I reorganized the pantry. I even used her old lemon cake recipe and made it from scratch. I was exhausted but proud. It wasn't a mansion, but it was clean, warm, and mine. She walked in, gave me that look, sniffed, and said, "This place smells like laziness." No, hi, no, thanks for having me. Just that. Then she went into the kitchen like she owned it, started opening the fridge and pulling things out. "Why do you buy this stuff?" she muttered, tossing out my groceries like I was hoarding garbage. No wonder the kids have allergies. She dumped my whole meal plan into the trash and replaced it with her own containers, homemade, labeled, and full of things I never asked for. Like I couldn't feed my own family. Darren walked in during this little performance. I looked at him, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He didn't. Instead, he said to me, low enough that she wouldn't hear, "Don't start anything." That was it. He didn't defend me, didn't stop her, just assumed I would be the problem. I felt something snap in my chest. Like all the years I'd been biting my tongue, swallowing insults, making sacrifices, they meant nothing to him. I realized I'd been alone in this marriage for a long time, so I played it cool. I nodded, smiled, and went upstairs like I was fine. I wasn't. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor for almost an hour. I thought about every Christmas I spent smiling through her jabs. Every time Darren told me I was too sensitive. Every insult disguised as concern. Every meal I made that she redid. Every time I worked myself into exhaustion and still got called lazy. And then I decided I was going to take back my life.
Quietly, carefully, permanently.
I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to ruin their little dynamic brick by brick. I started small, quiet, like she did. The first thing I did was stop correcting the kids when they said things that made her mad. Normally, I'd intercept. "Grandma doesn't like that," or "Let's not run in the house." Not this time. I let them be kids. When my daughter told Janice she didn't like her soup and asked for mac and cheese instead, I just smiled. Janice gave me a look like she expected me to discipline her. I didn't. Then I started letting her make all the decisions she so badly wanted to make. I stopped cooking. "Oh, I figured you'd want to handle dinner again, Janice." I let her organize the fridge, plan the meals, even decide what the kids wore to school. I made it look like I was being polite, helpful. Truthfully, I was letting her hang herself. By day 3, she was exhausted. The kids wouldn't eat her food. Darren kept asking me what was for dinner, and Janice was doing all the chores she claimed I was lazy about. I smiled and said, "You make it look so easy. I thought I'd just step back." She didn't like that. Then came the real turning point. One afternoon, I took Darren's phone while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I already knew what I was looking for. I just wanted proof. And I found it, text to his mom complaining about me. Screenshots of my messages. "She's impossible," he wrote. "I don't know how much longer I can take this." They'd been complaining about me behind my back for months. I sent the screenshots to myself. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started gathering more. I opened a separate bank account. Quietly. Moved part of my paycheck there. I talked to a lawyer just for a consult. I didn't want a divorce. Not yet. But I wanted options. I wanted to understand how custody worked, how assets were split. I learned Illinois was a no-fault divorce state. Good to know. Meanwhile, I let Janice burn herself out. She started snapping at the kids. "Why are you always whining?" she yelled one morning. My son cried. Darren told her to be patient, but his voice cracked when he said it. She started criticizing Darren, too. "You've gained weight," she said one night after dinner. "And that job of yours, do they even value you?" It wasn't just me anymore. That's when I knew this wasn't just about me being the wrong daughter-in-law. She was the kind of woman who had to feel superior to everyone around her, including her own son. He just couldn't see it until she turned on him, too. One night, while Darren and Janice were arguing in the kitchen, I tucked the kids in and told them we'd be going on a special trip soon, just me and them. I told them to keep it secret. The next morning, I called in sick to my part-time job, booked a suite at a local extended stay, and packed our essentials. I told Darren we were going to my sister's for the weekend. That was a lie. I was setting the first domino down. Janice was in the kitchen criticizing the way I folded towels when we left. That night, I sent Darren the screenshots of his messages to his mom, with no caption. Just silence. He called me 6 times. I didn't answer. The power had shifted. He just didn't know how much yet. The first night at the hotel, I didn't sleep much. The kids were watching cartoons in bed, eating snacks, and I just stared at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I was doing. I wasn't sure if I was running away or building something new. The next day, Darren showed up at my sister's house. I knew he would. I hadn't told him I was there, but I saw the Ring camera notification as he knocked, looked confused, then angry, then left. He texted, "We need to talk. You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word. Like I was just a hormonal teenager and not the woman holding together his entire life while being slowly erased by his mother's presence. I texted back one line. "You lied to me for months. You chose her every time. I'm done pretending that's normal." Then I blocked him. A few days later, I filed for a legal separation. I didn't tell Darren right away. Instead, I asked the lawyer to start with a custody agreement. Temporary but formal. I wanted to set the tone. While he scrambled to understand what was happening, I reached out to one of Janice's old coworkers, a woman named Ruth, who used to work with her in the dental office. We'd met at a barbecue once, and she'd made a weird comment back then about how Janice always did what she had to do to stay in control. I called her and asked plainly, "Did Janice ever do anything unethical at work?" There was a long pause. Then Ruth said, "You didn't hear it from me, but yeah. There was a patient complaint once, something about Janice forging post-op notes to avoid liability. It got swept under the rug because the dentist didn't want the heat." I got the name of the office and filed a Freedom of Information request with the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. It took time, but what came back was more than I expected. A formal complaint had been lodged against Janice 5 years ago. It didn't go to court, but it was documented. She had nearly lost her license. It wasn't public knowledge, but it was enough to make waves in her reputation-obsessed circles. Meanwhile, Darren was still trying to get me to come home. Sending flowers. Promising counseling. Saying Janice would stay in a hotel next time. Next time? He didn't get it. So I mailed a copy of the IDFPR report to Janice's church, anonymously. 2 weeks later, she stepped down from her role on their health outreach committee. Quietly. No public statement. But people knew. The looks she got on Sunday, the way neighbors started talking. I heard about it from a friend of hers who still thought I was sweet Michelle. Janice stopped calling, stopped texting. She went quiet. Darren noticed. He started unraveling, showing up to our hotel unannounced. Once, he banged on the door so hard the front desk called the police. I didn't press charges. I just told the officer I was seeking a protective custody agreement. What I didn't tell Darren was that I had already rented an apartment.
Small.
Just 2 bedrooms. But clean. Peaceful. The day I got the keys, I took the kids there after school. We laid on the floor and ate takeout. It was the first time in years I felt like the walls weren't closing in. Darren thought this was a phase, but I had no intention of going back. I gave Darren one last chance. We met at a local diner, Neutral Ground. I told him he had 30 minutes. No mother-in-law, no sidestepping, no gaslighting. He looked tired.
Pale.
A man who'd been forced to sit alone in the mess he used to blame on me. I never meant to hurt you, he said. I just didn't want conflict. That's the problem, Darren, I said. You didn't want conflict, so you gave her permission to ruin me. He shook his head, like he still couldn't see it. She's my mother. And I was your wife. He reached across the table. I didn't take his hand. I want to fix this, he said. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were the separation papers, the temporary custody agreement, and my financial breakdown, what I brought to the marriage, what I was entitled to leave with, and the shared assets I was walking away from, just to get out clean. He looked stunned. You don't want anything? No, I said. I just want my peace. You can keep the house.
Keep her.
But I'm taking the kids half-time, and I'm not coming back. He looked at the numbers. You're leaving money on the table. Consider it a fee for freedom. I stood up. One more thing. I'm giving you a choice. You can sign this today, quietly. Or we can go to court. And if we go to court, I'll have to bring up your communications with your mother about sabotaging my parenting. I'll subpoena her. And I'll submit those texts where she said I was too dumb to raise children without supervision. He went pale. I leaned closer. You think I won't do it, but I've already hired a lawyer who's better than yours.
He signed.
I walked out without looking back. 2 weeks later, I moved into the apartment with the kids. I painted their rooms, bought new bedding, even let them pick the colors. They were adjusting slowly, but every day, they smiled a little more, laughed a little louder. Janice called once, through a block number. I didn't answer. She didn't leave a message. I sent a final package to her house, a printed copy of the IDFPR complaint, a church bulletin with her name quietly removed from the health committee, and a note that said, "Control doesn't equal respect. You lost both."
No signature.
She knew who it was from. Last I heard, she stopped showing up to social functions. Her reputation was too important to survive quiet scandal.
Darren still tries to be involved.
He picks up the kids. They come home tired, quieter after visits. But I don't speak badly about him in front of them. I just remind them they are loved, strong, and never, ever invisible. It took me years to realize I was never part of that family. I was a placeholder, an accessory in someone else's power play. Now I wake up every day in a home that's mine, with kids who don't walk on eggshells, and silence that feels like safety. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just walked away and took everything they didn't realize they'd lose until it was gone. That was my revenge. And it was permanent.